Hello.
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 Hello?
Hello.
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 Hello?
Hello.
Oh, there you are. We thought you might be a monster.
Hello. Nope. Just 3 people sitting in a boat.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Another special today. We're on quarantine, so joined me on Discord is a wonderful fellow I met through Twitter. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is James Hewitt, and I make games for a living. Hooray!
Hooray! James, what? Just to name a few of the stuff you've worked on over the years, like it's a cool list. So
It's quite a list. So I used to design games for Games Workshop. So I did the first one I did for them was Betrayal at Calth, which was a hex-based squad shooty kind of game thing. I did Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. I did Gore Chosen. I then moved to the Specialist Games team. So I did I oversaw the relaunch of Blood Bowl from a rules point of view. Which is a fun little game. A few people have heard of that one. Necromunda, Titanicus, did Hellboy the board game, Devil May Cry the board game since leaving Games Workshop. I don't really stop.
Yeah, you're. I would call that quite a prolific work rate, right? Like, it's pretty impressive.
It's cool. Yeah.
So kind of. I just want to talk about Games Workshop for a little bit,
Yeah,
because it's something that's kind of like resurfaced in my life right now. Not that I'm like actively buying miniatures or White Dwarfs or any of that, right? None of that. But I have when I was like a teenager, early teenager, I loved Games Workshop, right? Like I collected 40k, just I was in love with it. And then at some point that broke, right? As a lot of young men happens. And then nothing. But for a while now, I've been watching like lore videos and even getting to the point where I'm watching like actual battle reports on battles. And I'm like, this is a weird hobby that I'm now in, is observing a hobby from a distance. Do you know what I mean? Like that's weird way to approach Games Workshop, but that's kind of where I'm at really. Yeah. So, well, apart from playing Blood Bowl, that is something I do a lot of. So,
I think it's like, with Warhammer TV, and then, because Warhammer TV certainly wasn't the first one to be doing it. A lot of other places were doing video battle reports first, but the number of different places that are doing it now, the standard's going up. There is
the quality is insane. Like, let me quote the one I've been watching, Tabletop Tactics.
Yes.
They're a UK lot.
Yeah,
their production value is so good. Like, I watched that. Like this. They've got their whole format down. It's really entertaining. It's not bogged down. You get to. It's just great, and it's a great way to pass through the quarantine. To be honest,
absolutely. I look back. So when Warhammer TV was first a thing, I was involved in one of the earlier broadcasts. We did the just after Blood Bowl had been released, the 2018 I think it was edition, or 2017, whatever it was. We did like the Full Beard Cup, which is a big gathering, big load of games up at Warhammer World. And we basically did a commentary on the top table. And it was one of the first things they'd really done in that sort of way. And we were kind of trying to figure out the format. It wasn't a thing I'd done before. I hadn't really commentated on a Blood Bowl match before. And looking at the way they do it now, it's so much better, because back then all we had was the one camera up top. We didn't have multiple angles. We didn't have really views on the dice rolls.
Camera.
No. So what we had was like a person on the sidelines, a guy sat next to the game, just typing his messages on his laptop, telling us what was happening, and then we had to kind of commentate as it was. And it was, also,
well, we're hearing from our guy on the sidelines.
It was literally that, and it just. Also for me, it was a load of pressure, because here was like the game that we just re-released, and that everyone was expecting us to screw it up royally, of course.
I can't imagine what that's like. Blood Bowl is like this sacred thing, right? Like, even when it comes to the computer games, the community is a rabid bunch of passionate wolves. You know what I mean? Like,
really are. That is the best way to put it.
I would just look at someone, if someone said to me, "Oh, by the way, Dave, we're gonna do you want to rewrite a lot of the lore for Blood Bowl? Because there's a new one coming out. Would you like to do it? I'll be like, fuck no. You can keep that. I want nothing to do with it. I'll watch this fire from a distance, you know?
And that was literally it. Because, I mean, you know, I knew the moment I took the job, the Blood Bowl project was the first thing I knew was happening when I took the job in the Specialist Games team. It was already kind of work in progress. They were already working on it. And it was like, if we screw this up, we are going to be flayed alive. People will hunt us down and, you know, stick cocktail sticks under our fingernails. It will not be a nice time for anyone.
Yeah, you'll never eat a burger unspatching.
No, exactly.
Again, you know,
because it's such a massive game. It's so well known, and initially the plan was actually to roll the rules back. Because I don't know how much you know about Blood Bowl's history, but it went through a whole period where it had the living rulebook.
Okay, so my knowledge ends at my age 14 or something, and then resurfaces a couple of years ago.
So help me out.
So
when you were age 14, what was the Blood Bowl? Was it when it was in Fanatic magazine?
So my early memories of Blood Bowl were Blood Bowl on a polystyrene board.
Good.
And it was like, it had a big skull in the middle, and that was the Blood Bowl I knew. Fantastic. That's the one I played.
I think we're of a similar generation. So I missed that one. But my first White Dwarf was the one where the 3rd edition Blood Bowl got released, so it was immediately after that.
Right, okay.
And so what happened was basically the 3rd edition came out in 1990-something, and I used to know all these dates off the top of my head because I had to explain this stuff to people. But they then kept that set of rules for ages, and then somewhere around 2004, 2005 maybe, they started doing a thing called the Living Rulebook, where every year they would update it and add in all the FAQ and errata. It's because they'd stopped supporting it quite so much in the stores, so they put all the rulebooks specialist games up as PDFs, and then they just had like a rules committee who would refine them. And then that rulebook was kind of used for about 11 years through various different versions.
Hold on, James. I want to stop you just for 1 second. For any listener that's got this far and doesn't know what Blood Bowl is, my humblest apologies, because we're off on one right now. Basically, Blood Bowl is a game of it's set in the kind of fantasy world of Warhammer, and it's American football. It's turn-based, and basically it's kind of fun. You roll dice and bash each other, and it's kind of violent, or there's some elf bullshit, but let's not talk about that. And sorry, James.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's important. You know, this isn't the Blood Bowl podcast. You know, this is
no,
it's
exactly,
a whole different thing. But yeah, totally. So the rules kind of were honed over about a 7 or 8 year period, I think it was in total, until they had what they called the competition rule pack, the Living Rulebook version 6, the final iteration of it, where, you know, that was used for tournaments for years. And then we were coming in, we were going to change it. And what they wanted to do, they wanted to roll it back to before the Living Rulebook stuff had been going on. I think there was like an initial, we don't know who owns this. And that would have been mad because, you know, the video game is based off the competition rules pack. The tournaments that are going on are based off it. It would have been like a step backwards massively. And thankfully, we managed to convince them not to do that. So what we did, we just used that one and added some mistakes of our own, basically.
Yeah, sure. So I actually don't know how it was received. So how was it received?
Interestingly, overall, I think the vast majority of people were happy with it. We made some changes, which in hindsight we probably shouldn't have made, but also a lot of the changes that we did make I'm really happy with, and I think once people gave it a chance and, you know, took a breath, they really enjoyed it, because a lot of the stuff we'd put in place was based off feedback we'd read online and that sort of thing. So overall, it's brought a whole new bunch of people to the game, and that's a good thing, right? I'm happy with that.
Blood Bowl is a great game. Yeah. Like it's, I absolutely still love it. Stop playing it now, which is why we even started having this conversation in the first place. Really. Which is great. Also, shout out to Necromunda as well, because I used to play that back in the day as well, and that was amazing. That was like my game. That's the one that I grew up on. That was like my. So you described the pitch to Necromunda.
So Necromunda is it's a grim, dark, futuristic sci-fi setting where you've got, it's a little bit Judge Dredd. It's this mega city. Yeah. And Necromunda is set in the Underhive, which is like the area beneath it, which is like a lawless wasteland. And it's a miniatures game where you collect like a band of fighters, like a gang, and you fight against your mates. But it's designed for long form gaming, so you don't just play one game. You play a whole campaign, and you develop story, and you get narratives, you get interesting things like that.
I back in the day, I absolutely loved it. Like, it was so good. Like, having this little squad of people that you name, and then you're so proud of them, and then you take them out, and then all of a sudden someone throws a really well-aimed crack grenade and kills your favourite gunner, and then everything goes to shit. You know what I mean? Like, they fall off the buildings and all that crap. So, it was fantastic game.
Yeah. And it was so much fun kind of coming back to that and getting a chance to revisit that and, think about what would I do. And I mean, Necromunda, whereas Blood Bowl was very much the same game, Necromunda was redeveloped from the ground up completely. So it was, the new one feels like the old one, but it's a much more modern, much more slick system, I think. Right.
I remember it being very clunky back in the day. Like,
we tried to avoid some clunk,
We spent a lot of time talking about rules, I remember that, and what did work and didn't work in certain, because you were really heavily invested in your little people, right? My ladies, in my case, because I was Escher. So, they were fantastic.
Have you seen the new Escher models, the more recent releases? Because they are fantastic.
I haven't, and I feel like as soon as I'm let out of quarantine, I'm worried about what's going to happen to my bank account. I'm deeply concerned. What I probably should be doing, well, basically my plan is, after the quarantine's over, I'm going to go to my local games workshop or local game store, and I'm going to just be that creepy guy in his mid-30s, loitering around, looking at different things and maybe trying to watch a game or two. That's probably
what it's all about,
my plan.
I mean, I used to run Games Workshop retail stores. I worked in retail for about 10 years, and that's how I kind of got my start in games as a thing. And there is nothing quite as delightful as seeing someone come in, and they're what we call the lapsed hobbyist, the person who used to be into it, got out of it for whatever reason, and has now come back, and they have this thing they never used to called disposable income. They will smell the blood in the water.
I don't know whether I do or not. This is the thing that worries me so much about it. I already LARP. It's like,
absolutely.
There's only so many gut punches my finances can take before they're going to give out. I feel like from your description there, what should I walk in there and go like, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I think it has been 20 years since my last game of 40k.
They will take you by the shoulder and lead you and show you what is right. They'll look after you.
Yeah, it's 40k is a very different game now from when I was a whippersnapper.
Massively.
Right. Shall we talk about LARP a little bit?
Oh yeah, I do that too. That's probably a thing we should talk about, isn't it?
Yeah. How did you hear about LARP and how did you get into it? Let's start there.
Blimey, it's a good question. So, how far do I go back? So when I was a student, a bunch of my housemates did LARP down in Reading. I've got no idea what system they did, or I'm assuming it might be to do with the university. I don't know. But it always kind of interested me. I was too busy working generally to do anything though. I was around, foam weapons and armour and all this sort of stuff. I just didn't get a chance to get involved in it. Flash forward to last year, it would have been, or maybe even the year before, and I found out some people I was working with in Games Workshop were going to Empire, and I thought, oh, that's okay, this is interesting, because the thing that had always kind of put me off, that scared me off a little bit, is what if I go and I don't enjoy myself? Because it's a big investment, it's a big thing to do. I've been a tabletop role player for 20 years. That's worrying to say it out loud. And
we're all there, don't worry.
Yeah. I'm just going to ponder my mortality for a moment.
Let's have an existential crisis and move the hell on with the podcast, all right? Let's go.
And so, but I'd always thought, I like role-playing with people I know, people who I'm going to get along with, I'm going to have a good time with them. How do I feel about taking that out to a big, large, group? And I've done things like, I've done a couple of mega games. I don't know if you've experienced mega games at all.
I am a big fan of the oh my god, my mind goes blank for their name. The guys that do board game reviews.
Shut Up and Sit Down.
English fellas. Shut Up and Sit Down. They are absolutely fantastic. And I remember one of their earlier videos
Watch
was
the
a mega game. And oh my god, did that get my blood pumping? I was like, we must go to this, basically.
I went to one, because Watch the Skies has a thing. The rules pack is available and clubs can run it. And we found a group in Birmingham that were doing it. And we went along, and it's about 60 odd people in a room, and I ended up on one of the alien teams. My partner Sophie ended up on, she was a corporation trying to sell weapons to people, and it was the most fun ever. And I was like, actually, this is interesting. This is it's role playing. It's a full day event. It's a big group of people. I'm having fun. but still, there was that kind of, I don't want to go and invest massively in LARP if I don't know I'm going to enjoy myself. And one of the big things for me is finding a group of people that I know that I'm going to enjoy it with. So when I found out that a bunch of people I worked with were going along, like that was a ready-made group, right? So even if I didn't enjoy what was going on, we could hang out as a group and, you know, be in character amongst ourselves, and that'd be a fun time.
I went with my buddy Ian and Bungle the first time I went, so for me it wasn't like I went on my own, but I completely sympathise with anyone that is slightly worried about going to a LARP event on their own, you know?
Absolutely. And so I finally sort of decided to give it a go, and I think it was a group of people who I'd done stuff with before, so I'd got into airsoft with them about a year previously, and we'd done a load of airsofting and that, and I'm sure there's a lot of crossover between the two hobbies.
Dude, the more I do this, the more all of these things just keep going. Sorry.
The Venn diagram is basically a circle, isn't it? Basically,
it's just like if you said, and I also slightly involved in cosplay, I wouldn't be surprised either. You know,
I've never gone there, but
I actually think the Venn diagram is actually the airsoft and the cosplay is the lines that don't really cross that much. I would
could
say
be right.
There
That's
probably
the two halves, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there. I'm sure there's a spectrum of everyone that does everything, right? But who knows?
What's interesting is you kind of got like tabletop gaming, airsoft, cosplay. That's your three things around LARP, isn't
it? D&D, any sort of RP
absolutely.
system like that. Obviously, that's kind of where we've just started a new D&D campaign. So I am like filling in my LARP with a bit of D&D, and it's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Well, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, so this group, they'd been along, I think, since E1 last year, and we were going to go for E2, and then the weekend, like everything in our life happened on that weekend. It was like Sophie's mum's birthday. It was something else happening. Some friends were getting married. There was all these different things. It's like, oh, come on. So even though we'd I
just want to go LARPing. Can everyone stop being so selfish?
Exactly. And especially because we've got a 4-year-old, or 3-year-old at the time, and we were like, we're going to need to get people to look after her because we can't take her with us. We're not going to take her with us for the first one, certainly. Yeah, maybe at some point down the line we might look into it, but she's not old enough yet.
If you don't know the situation, I completely concur. That's probably wise, right, for your first event.
And so we were like, well, this is just not going to work. And so we were really bummed out. We'd spent ages. We'd made costume. We'd done things, and then we couldn't go. And it really sucks. Then we went along to E3 in the end, and this was like, having first found out about it immediately after E1, so that was like April. It was now June, I think, or July, whatever E3 was.
So what was was it your friends going? That was the first point of contact for
Empire,
your awareness of Empire.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it turned out we had a couple of friends who had been involved in it like since it was Maelstrom, so who have been in it for a long time.
Yeah, that's way back. Right?
We're up in Nottingham. Apparently, there's like a little knot of people who are quite, stalwart Empire people. So we ended up going to like a meet up in a pub, and but it was this thing, and in that sort of several months period, we were just like, what is this? What are we going for? How big can it really be? And we looked at photos, but one of the things that the photos I think don't capture is the scale of the event.
Yeah. I think it depends on the photographer. I think obviously I'm a big fan of a couple of them, but they emit emotion. But I agree. Trying to get in the idea of, because the actual campsite's kind of spread out, right? It's over a number of different sites, so trying to get the actual full scale is quite difficult in one shot.
It's a thing you don't really get by sort of being there and walking around. So when we first got there, we turned up, we had a car full of stuff. We'd packed far too much stuff. We'd bought a tent. We're camping OC, but we bought like a nice, decent sized tent with enough room to get changed and all that sort of thing. We camped up with our mates, and they'd all come down on the Thursday, but we'd come up on the Friday because we, again, childcare is a limiting factor.
Obviously.
And we got there, and it was like, oh my God, this is massive. This is unlike anything we'd imagined. And like the whole way up, we'd been going with our friend Lise, who, again, she's from back in the Maelstrom days. So she was filling us in on everything. She was briefing us the entire way. And but even then we weren't ready. And then we got there, and it's so, I can't describe it. It felt like coming home. It felt so real and such an amazing experience. Even before time in, just walking around and seeing all these places, campfires and things, people in full kit. It was magical.
Now when I go there, the sense of kind of homecoming is so strong with me now. Like a few years on, especially like on the Thursday.
Yeah.
Walking around in this kind of like when no one's in character, but it's just like the coolest festival with the nicest people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
we really want to get
just
down for a
really
Thursday
nice
at some
vibe.
point. Absolutely. It's incredible. So then, so we came along and we did E3 and we just threw ourselves in. So we
hold on, which nation are you?
Navarre,
obviously,
of course,
obviously, the best nation by
big
far.
up the Embercast striding. We do stuff. We're looking at setting up.
That's more than my striding does. My striding doesn't do anything.
Well, this is it. We thought about it. This last year we were planning for E1. We were going to launch like we're still thinking of doing it. We launched like a messenger service because one of the things we did at E3 last year was myself and Sophie spent most of the event running messages around camp, and it was actually a really good way to get to know where everything was. It gave us some game. It helped us meet a load of people we would otherwise not have met. And so we're formalising that. We're setting up a whole little system.
Hold on. So you're going to deliver letters to people?
Pretty much, yeah. Letters, messages, packages.
That is like trying to track people down at
Exactly.
Empire is. Why would you want to do that? I've had to do it for my own personal gain, but like. I suppose you're doing it for your own personal gain as well. Depends what that gain is, right?
The way we're planning it, I can give a little sales pitch now. What we're doing is we're saying,
let's hear it.
So for the princely sum of 5 rings, it's not a lot, is it? 5 rings.
That's
we're doing like 3 runs a day, and we will deliver a message to a location. So we'll give it to a camp of your choice. Yeah,
that's clever.
So 5 rings in your bargain basement. We'll get it to. Either one of the Ashbournes, whatever it might be.
Okay.
And that is that. For a premium beyond that, which starts at £2 additional but goes further, we will spend a certain amount of time looking for a particular person. We will do it immediately rather than waiting for the next run that we're doing, and so on and so forth. So the prices start at a very reasonable 5 rings and very quickly get more expensive. Because, that is... Do you know what? That sounds pretty reasonable, to be honest. Absolutely. Well, like I say, when we did it at E3 last year, we ended up... Because we were just walking around, and what we'd done was we'd picked up a job... doing some work for the Imperial offices, and it was like a census, like going around asking for people's opinions on the Grey Pilgrims, and that was it. And we were told, go to like these 5 nations and find out what people think. And so it was just a case of walking around. But as we were doing it, we said to people, look, as we're walking around camp, have you got a message you want dropping off anywhere? Because we're going that way. And it was fantastic. We ended up taking... What was it? We had a bunch of marchers got us to send some death threats to some highborn, which was fantastic. We had all sorts of nonsense kicking off. We ended up teaming up with a guy called Jack, of course, from the Marchers, who was like a private detective type character. He was setting himself up that way, and we helped him find some information. It was great because we met a load of people, and it gave us a fair bit of game. So our little group, there's about a dozen of us now. It was not really a little group anymore, but we've got about 4 or 5 new people coming. Would have been to E1. And we said to them it's a great way for you to get out and find out what's what at the camp, find out where things are, and cause I imagine
sounds like
it would be so easy to just kind of stay in your camp and stay
I know people, I won't name names, but really don't know how to navigate their way around the whole of Anvil. They know where the Navarre camp is and there were a couple other bits, but if you said like where is Varushka, they probably wouldn't have an idea. Probably they do now, but like for many events they wouldn't have had a clue, right?
But I think it's part of the thing that makes it feel alive, because you get to go and see how different every one of the little areas of the site is. Every camp's got its own things going on.
When you think about all these different people in all their little camps creating their own little bit of narrative and plot, it really does blow your mind. And then out of all of this chaos, the whole Empire shuffles along making terrible decisions, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of my favourite things that happened at E4. So we've only been to 2 events, and I feel like it's been like a lifetime. It's so weird. But at E4 we had, I don't know if you were aware of this, there was the whole thing with Spiteful, like the masked marcher who was threatening briars and things.
I had a run-in with him, actually.
There we go.
He came to our campsite and we had a good old chat. I know the guy who plays him, and he is
mean,
one of my favourite people at Empire. Just
massive
how much game he
applause,
brings.
because holy shit, that was incredible. I've never seen one person, I say never, I've only been to 2 events, but I can't imagine it happens very often that one person creates that much game for that many people.
No, it's really special. And also, like, the way he does it as well. It's not like it's just like this big, screamy, I'm creating game type thing. He's so subtle, and he's the nicest guy, but when he wants to pull off like shifty and menacing, well, he's got that shit down. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, completely by himself as well. But like, we're all at our campsite, and there's 4 of us. We're all armed, and there's one guy, and he put us on edge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the whole, I think it was the Sunday. I think a fair chunk of the day, might have been Saturday, was spent with a bunch of like scary-looking tattooed nutters with knives prowling around the camp looking for this guy. And
I know some of those tattooed psychopaths with knives.
Absolutely.
I know some of them. Some of them are my friends. They're good people.
And it was great. It felt so like he'd kicked the hornet's nest, and it felt like such. The best bit was when he was sat in the hub, and like I think the Navarre contingent were told to wait outside. And there there's that bit in The Simpsons, I think it's Who Shot Mr. Burns, where the Mayor Quimby says, I noticed a lot of you are stroking guns. And it was basically that. There were just like loads of people just holding weapons in a threatening fashion and looking at him with intent in their eyes. So basically, that was fantastic. And I just love the fact that we came along not knowing what to expect, and we had any expectations we had absolutely blown out of the water.
I don't think there's any way to really... because Bram, I went down the same road you did, right? Where I just demolished media, right? Like everything I could get my hands on to do with LARP, I watched, listened, anything I could, right? With varying qualities and all the rest of it, right? But to actually take on the field and to actually experience it it's quite hard to explain. It's very personal, right? Like different people will react to the situation in different ways. One thing I found interesting is sometimes very confident people struggle to find their footing at Empire, and I find that quite interesting. It's whereas some quite shy people can suddenly find a whole new aspect of themselves of that they didn't even know they had. It's fascinating.
Well, this is it. I mean, it's like you say, you can be someone who is maybe a bit retiring in real life, but if you can commit to a character who's not that, you can go and do that, and maybe that can flash back into your actual life as well.
Well, I talked about this a little bit before, where I kind of got into this idea of like the idea of a mask, where when you are trying to RP, you're wearing a mask, and that mask is completely metaphorical, right? It's not a real mask, but that mask can give you the ability to be like, no, I'm going to stay in my character, and I'm just going to get through this, and I'm going to see how it goes. And it's quite interesting when you manage to be the character you want to be in a real life situation.
Absolutely. It's a thing that I was thinking about. I sort of set some goals for myself for this year. We're planning on going to all 4 events, and we wanted to put some general goals in. We had like a chat, we had a meet up as a striding, out of character, just to talk about what we want to do, setting up a messenger system, what are our long-term goals, what do we want, what do we want to achieve. And then I was thinking about what are my own personal goals, and one that I really want to do is I want to push my character further away from who I am, because initially I'd read some advice, which is because you're not playing around a table. It's not like D&D. You're not playing for 2 hours. You're playing for a whole weekend. So don't do anything that's too over the top at first. When you're playing D&D, big bombastic over the top characters kind of work quite well. Big like tropey things. But trying to maintain that for an entire weekend is quite a challenge. So, and what this advice had said was, start off with a character that is like you, but you turn an aspect up to 11. Whatever it might be. And so I did that, but what I want to do is kind of start pushing myself away from that and start fitting more into that mask, as you say, and making a character who is more not someone that I would be. And that's like my challenge for this year, really.
I think that's extremely admirable. I would say this is going to be my this is my 3rd year going now. And I only say that it's only like when I was talking about using a mask, I'm usually talking about it in a way that I am trying to overcome something immediate, right? So I have to make a speech somewhere or go to Songs and Stories and do something like that. A very immediate thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think there's like, I'm starting to get into the idea now of becoming much deeper into my character while I'm RPing there. You know, like
Yes,
I'm sure some
absolutely.
people have found this a lot easier, but I think with the way things are going in my striding and the rest of the Empire, I think my character can start to... let me put it this way. I felt like my character lacked form for a while, and it was hard to kind of like push those RP levels. Now I feel like I'm starting to get to know them a bit better. It's becoming easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did a thing. So at the end of E3, there'd been a whole thing where a load of herbs had been stolen from the orc, one of the orc tents.
Yeah, I heard
this whole
about
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and like we'd heard about it when we were hanging around the Imperial offices waiting for some of these jobs we were doing. We'd heard about this, so then we thought, oh screw it, we'll go and see if we can investigate this. We got this guy who was a marcher to come and help us out as well, and we ended up like finding out a bunch of stuff. The main thing being that it was kind of being pinned on Navarre. And so we thought,
dude, it always is. It always
exactly,
is,
because we're right next to them, and like the fence between us and them had kind of been knocked down, and so we'd done this work. And at the end of E3, at the standing at the very end, I thought, I just had this moment. I was like, I think I need to say something about this, and so I just got up in front of the whole, and it's a big group. Navarre's not a small nation.
Yeah. No, it's big, and it's weird. Did you have to wait in a queue before you spoke?
Yeah, I did, and it was
How horrible is that?
Yeah,
it's horrible, isn't it? You're sat there going, all right, that's 2 more people, and the closer you get, the more nervous you get, until you're standing there like, and there's no one in front of you as a barrier.
Yeah.
So the person that's actually talking is in the middle of the circle, but
you're next.
You're right there, right?
Yeah.
You can't duck out now.
And also, the longer it goes on, the more you're thinking, am I just wasting everyone's time? Should I be doing this? But actually, no, I think you just got to go for it, right? And I did. And I had like a little sort of, chat and said, Navarre, this is what's happened. Just so you're aware, this is being pinned on us. We're not going to take this line down. I think that we should have a whip around and get some herbs to,
I remember that. That was awesome. Yeah.
And it was like... I did it, and it was fun, and it ended up making a link with the orcs that I've worked on since then. And someone came up to me afterwards and was astonished it was my first time.
I was about to say, I was just about to say, I am like, there was nothing about what you did there that made me go, oh, this is a new player pushing their boundaries. Like, you were like, it just felt
like the right thing to do, and so that was thoroughly enjoyable, And I want to do more of. I want to kind of make our striding more well known within the nation, and so that's what we're talking about. And like I say, this is all part of my own development for the character is pushing down that way. I want to go down a bit of a dark path with them, which is going to be fun. I'm sure everyone likes to do that. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's interesting about the idea of, now I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons again.
Yeah,
when you roll the dice and that kind of group camaraderie that you get from a successful roll.
Yeah.
What's interesting, and but at LARP, that emotion can be way more intense, right?
Yeah.
Because you're actually physically doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like your adrenaline's pumping, like it's so visceral,
So were you there for the branding of the Dornish people last E4? The Dornish, 3 of them that had run through the camp during a particular bit of hearth magic. Were you aware of this that had happened?
I'm not sure. Maybe. I don't know.
It was a big thing where
so
a bunch of people in Dorne were doing some kind of some crazy Dornish rite of passage thing, which was like basically a big old game of hide and seek / manhunt, and they 3 of them or 2 of them ran straight through the middle of the big, whatever the big circle is at Navarre, the big like songs and stories circle.
Yeah.
In the middle of a ritual that was happening, like quite an important one. The egregore was like, I think it was a young lad being welcomed into the Navarre or something.
Oh, that is that is not the time.
No, and it was, and we all got pulled in, and we were just sat at the camp time, and we ended up with like, 50 odd people stood around as the people from Dawn had the freezing brand of Irenaeus, I want to say, like put on him, which is like a whole thing, and it was this very, very evocative scene, and we all felt it. You could tell that there was this tension, and even though it's not real, that's not how it felt.
Yeah, but how did you feel as a Navarre, right? Like I'm gonna say right now, guaranteed, you were furious, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you were angry at them and you wanted, but how weird is the goddamn group think? That weird group, like tribal mentality that is.
And
so
you look around it, and suddenly what you've got is a group of outsiders in the middle of this group, and then everyone around the outside. We are a family. We are together. You know what I mean? We are all here.
Yeah.
And they have come in here and they've done some shit, and now they're going to pay for it.
If I'm ever nervous in a situation where, say, if it's late at night and there's shenanigans and all sorts of things happening, if I see a Navarre, I know I'm significantly safer than not, right? Like
absolutely.
that's literally, I'll check a bar, I'll see what's going on, like, and if I see a Navarre in any bother, I'll definitely go and intervene, right? Like it's a no-brainer.
It's what's weird is it's like, I mean, I know we're one of the biggest nations, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's a family. You know, you feel like everyone in that camp is on your side, and I think part of it comes from the brief, the fact that it's a nation that is still reeling from some really bad shit that happened to it a long time ago. We're trying to get some stuff back. We are, we're bound to the empire in such a massive way, and I think it really.
I'm sure
something.
All nations are like this, by the way. Like, I'm
absolutely,
sure,
absolutely.
We're just we love Navarre, and therefore we're gonna talk about it. If I talk to someone from Dawn, I'm probably sure they feel the same way. But
absolutely.
I think Navarre has some really special things like songs and stories. I think we have there's some really interesting key people in Navarre that make the whole thing feel very warm and very nice. I don't know how else to put it, but it's been an absolutely fascinating journey so far, and I just can't wait. I mean, I was so gutted that E1 didn't happen. Obviously, it's understandable. There was no option. Let's caveat right now. We all understand it's completely necessary,
absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that it
all of
isn't,
us were
annoying that's happening.
Yeah, and last weekend, as it was all going off, we all felt very, very keenly the absence of it. I think, and
massively. I think there was interesting, so Songs and Stories was last week. There were so many events on and people doing different things. There was a fundraiser for the theatre on the Friday night. I watched a bit of that. PD did a stream on Saturday afternoon, which I didn't get to see much of because of other things. I know that's it was the usual trouble of Matt Pemington, Claire Evans, and Andy Raff, which is a powerhouse of a conversation anytime. So, and then on Saturday they had a virtual Songs and Stories,
which was
fantastic. So I kind of got asked to kind of help out and talk about a few of the technical stuff with them. Yeah, and God, it was interesting, being in there and realizing how much talent there is on the field. It's bonkers.
It's astonishing, isn't it? Yeah.
Did you watch Songs and Stories? Right.
I caught a little bit. So I was running a game design course, but in between it, I was like, "Oh, go and look, go and see what's happening."
Yeah. I absolutely loved it. I had to watch a Skype call. I was on it was a birthday party, so I had it on a second screen. So every so often I would just phase out watching Songs and Stories, and people would be like, Dave, are you there? And I'm like, oh yeah, I was definitely paying attention. I'm not watching anything else. Yeah, of course, it's your birthday. I would totally not be zoning out on you. You're
the one that matters in my life.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever your name is. But I think it was weird to watch it because I was slightly worried that it wouldn't have the potency of what it is live. But I don't know whether I've just been programmed at this stage to because I loved it. It was so good.
Well, I'll tell you what. I had a little thing a while back where I went through a phase of listening to all the various SoundClouds that there are, popping the volume up high, and there's some of them that are the ones that were clearly recorded on site. They just transport you there,
Yeah.
And totally. I got a lump in my throat for a couple of them. I missed it so much.
Yeah, I haven't laughed that hard and felt that real emotion in one evening. It was amazing. It was so good. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Sam Sparrow, who did my story of my death again on the stream.
Fantastic.
Didn't cry this time, thank you very much, Sam. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I will stay strong. It's your magic doesn't work on me anymore, Sam.
He's a legend, though, isn't he? What a guy!
Just the nicest dude. Yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely look forward to learning more tambourine techniques next year when I get back on the field.
Well, I want to go. I took a drum along last time. I wanted to give it a go. I dabble with drums vaguely in real life, and I wanted to do that. So I ended up going out on the battlefield with a drum because I'm a bit shit at a fight, so I thought I'd take a drum with me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was good fun, especially up for the march in. That was a laugh. But
is it okay? Let's talk about battles, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was your first big battle like?
So I went in. I wasn't. I didn't.
Hold on, was this your first? Hold on, was this your first combat, or did you go on a skirmish?
So
or
let's do. So I've not been on a skirmish. I really want to go on a skirmish, but I'm also very aware that I'm probably not great in a fight. So I don't like. It feels like it's quite competitive. Like there's not a lot of spaces. So
it can go wrong fast.
Yeah,
but don't let that put you off too much, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing people get confused about is people's characters' bravado compared to their actual ability.
Very
the two
true.
things are not necessarily entwined. So if someone seems like Billy Big Nuts and they're really, really confident, they might not be, right?
Yeah.
You might well stand your ground. Like, be your character. That's what I'd say to that. Sorry, that's a sidetrack.
Absolutely. But I mean, one of the things is most of the sort of kit I ended up putting together was very much non-combat, so I haven't really got much in the way of armor, big weapons, that sort of thing. So
that's scary.
So my first taste of combat, I went to the new player, combat, whatever it is on the first day, and I thought that was fantastic. I had a great time. The instructors were brilliant.
They're brilliant. Yeah, they're so good.
I lost all my money. I'd put all my coins in a pouch, which I lost them during the new player skirmish out in a field somewhere. Like a twat. It's like the.
Did you tell PD?
I did in the end, but what I also did was, and then they were very kind. They gave it to me, but before I did that, I worked into it that because I was on my way somewhere straight after time in, and I suddenly realised I'd lost my money. So my cover for going and getting it sorted out was I'd been grifted on the road on the way in. I was like, I'm going to go back and talk to that guy because he has clearly got my money. So yes,
I'm going to keep an eye out for him. He'll be in a bar somewhere spending my
money.
Exactly.
And so actually, I ended up for the first hour. I was buying a couple of drinks by sort of trading. I was just using barter. I was like, I've got this necklace I made. Can I have a drink? And it totally worked. But yeah,
I'll take a necklace for a drink. You can definitely trade that way,
exactly.
for sure. Yeah,
and that's kind of why we'd made a load of this stuff. We spent ages doing loads of leather working and beadwork and stuff, and it was great fun having that kind of barter economy.
Oh, so you came with stuff you'd crafted?
Yes, yeah, we did. We went a bit mad. I learned bookmaking, bookbinding. I made a book.
Jesus Christ, James! I've been doing this 2 years, and I'm starting to get to the point where I'm slightly embarrassed about this conversation at this stage.
I took a silly
You've achieved more in 2 events than I've done in 2 years.
But yeah, so battles wise, so that was my first sort of battle. And then the Saturday morning was when we were going out as Navarre, and I didn't go. And there were 2 reasons. First of all, I wasn't sure what to make of it yet. I thought I'm probably not ready for it. I want to get a feel for the camp first, but also from a character point of view, without going into too much detail because everyone's got a massive backstory. I was playing a character who had been a fighter in his youth and then had a long time of not fighting and was now kind of coming back into society, having been kind of in a self-imposed exile for quite a while. So
perfect.
Yeah, exactly. It was totally built to make up for the whole I'm new to Anvil thing and so on and so forth. So
that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I wanted to kind of justify it in my own mind, and so I spent the first battle in character. Sitting in Moorish with someone from my striding, so Sophie, my partner, we're not partners in game, but we are partners in real life, which is some would say more important. But we spent the whole thing with me basically on a massive guilt drive that I should be out there helping our striding, but here I am like some kind of coward, and it was actually quite good fun. So then I went in because what I wanted to do, I wanted my first experience of a battle to be monstering, really. And so I did that on the Sunday, and I thought it was such a good time. I had a right laugh. I went in, I was an orc physic, and I had a bunch of slaves.
Dude, the fact is that some people don't show up to Monster. They are missing out on the best part of the weekend. It's like, I love monstering. It's totally freeing. Like you're talking about before, it can be like, you can feel quite a lot of pressure sometimes, especially when you got shit to do as your character, right?
Yeah.
So go monster. Yeah. If you just want to feel like what it's like to charge a line with no holds barred, then go for it.
Absolutely.
You know?
And you get to have some fun death scenes, which you might not necessarily want to have as yourself. You know, I mean, I got taken down. The Imperial Orcs charged our section of the line and just rolled over me, and I won't lie, it was utterly terrifying. You know?
The Imperial Orcs are, whenever you're monstering and you see the Imperial Orcs come down on you, I'm always like, fuck.
They were a scary
this is I can't run now, they're too damn quick.
So that was that, and then that was so I did one battle at E3, and that was the monstering, and then at E4 it was the so I took part in the first battle, and that was the one where we had a load of orcs that we were trying to defend.
Yeah.
You
the ones where they're all running up. Yes, I was. I didn't fully understand the brief, and I definitely lashed out at least one of them when I was out there.
Well, they had some like infiltrators. There were sneaky, naughty Druge in amongst them who were.
Is this the one that it was just like the battle was the entire field?
It was massive, and we kept moving, and
that was.
And they were coming from all sides. It was fantastic.
That was a wacky battle, by the way. Like I've never seen in the 2 years that I've been going to these big battles. I've never seen one like that before. Like where it was just so spread out, and just individual nations and individual units were just.
It felt like it was on the edge of going wrong, but it didn't. It kind of all held, you know. But I was there, like I say, so I wasn't fighting. I had had a weapon on me, but I was mainly there. I'm an artisan. Generally, so I was there. Well, I was there to help out and like repair weapons if they were needed. They didn't really. That's not a thing that happens with the Druge, really. So I ended up hanging out with the physics and helping them pull people out of the way and that sort of stuff.
I think there are. I think that's a really good approach and something to be noted for maybe people that aren't necessarily the most confident.
Yeah.
That you can find a role even if it isn't being on the front line fighting.
Absolutely.
Water bearing, helping out physics, even if you're not a physic. Yeah. That there are specific units that are there to keep physics safe usually. So you will, if things go wrong, then it's gone wrong for loads of people, and don't feel bad about it, right?
But it was great because it meant that I was there. I was keeping a watch out. I was making sure they had all the things they needed. I was holding stuff for them. You know, it felt like I was part of it without having to be right on the front lines. And then that kind of made sense.
Were you ever in a situation where you're like watching the front line looking threatened and you have that great moment
getting a little bit
we gotta go right now, we gotta go,
especially in that battle where like suddenly out of nowhere there's orcs in the woods and I was like shit, you know, they're coming out from that way, turn around. We had the who's that? We got like a League mercenary company who fight alongside us. Forget the yellow and black armor,
the sea wolves.
That was it, and they were facing completely the wrong way. I was like, guys, excuse me. That way, and they all reformed.
They're an effective fighting force, that bunch. Yeah,
so
that's for sure.
That was fantastic.
I like having those things where you're like, when you realise that you're standing in a position with maybe one or two other people, and you realise that only if those orcs over there figure out,
absolutely,
if they hit us with the units they have, they'll go straight through us into the physic block and wreak absolute havoc. You know, there's like just try and stand there and look scary, okay?
But I'll tell you what as well. On the Sunday of that one, I went monstering again, and it's when we were being was it Grendel or Jurgen? Yeah, Grendel maybe. I ended up I volunteered to.
Oh, is this the one where we attacked the fort?
That was it, and we had some big giants. That was it. Yeah.
I think we were Jotun because it was an honour battle.
That was it. Yes, I remember now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I think so.
And we were all sort of lined up, and it was a really hot day. I'd done a really stupid thing. I'd put my armour on over my water bottle, so I couldn't get to my bottle. I was like, ugh. And so I thought, I don't really fancy being in the front lines. And then they called one of the our section commander called out, I need a volunteer to carry the banner. And I thought, oh, screw it, why not? So
perfect.
I did, and actually what was really interesting was I ended up stood right at the back of the field with the commander, organising runners to go and give orders to different parts of the battlefield.
And how much did you learn from that,
So much. It was fascinating.
Crazy.
Like watching the way the battle ebbs and flows and all that, you know, it was so interesting.
I think there are many different... there's many games to play in Empire, but even on the battlefield, right? Like, I'm a runner. I run about. That's what I do. I deliver messages to different units, and I get to play... the very specific role. If you're a frontline fighter with a shield, then that's a whole different thing. If you're an archer, if you're a commander, even if you're just someone who is like a sergeant in the ranks, right? You are there to help out, keep morale, and keep everything going on, and make sure that everyone's organised in what they're doing.
That's it.
there are so many different opportunities for people to step up, and it's like it's so cool to see when it does happen.
And I'll tell you what, it was fascinating. From the point of view of someone who has been a tabletop war gamer and has written tabletop war games, like watching the strategy of the battle, the zoomed out version of what's going on, was fascinating. The whole point of giving an order and then watching it not make its way quite to the people that need to see it, and watching them pull ahead.
Communication, right? Like the
such a limiting factor.
Anarchy of a battle. You're like, I have no fucking clue what's happening. And also, the battle that you were in was a straight line, right?
It was. Yeah.
Imagine what it's like with, like,
imagine the day before.
There's a fight going on in the woods. Our sides could be being decimated right now, or crushing the enemy. We have no idea. There could be a whole bunch of people come running out of there that aren't our guys and ruin everything. And these field commanders just basically have to sit there and look calm as a fucking cucumber while chaos happens around them. It's so cool.
And that's fascinating. I mean, it made me think, is that a part of the game I kind of want to look towards, And
sure.
Because that kind of strategic command was really interesting. I'm not even saying I'd be good at it. It was just really interesting to watch.
I think there's the kind of the military game, going to the military council and all that stuff. I have a bit of an aversion to meetings. That
is the one thing that puts me off, I've got to say.
Yes, and this is the kind of thing. There's a lot of meetings in a lot of these roles. But what's weird is my kind of little interactions, my double zeros running for anything at the Senate, has been really interesting and educational. I'm not saying I want to be a senator or do any of that stuff or what I really want to do. I have some ideas, but it's like that doesn't seem that bad to me now. And I'll be going to meetings if I do certain jobs, right? So interesting.
It's like you say, because of the scale of the place, there is something for everyone. Whatever your approach wants to be, you will find it there. The fact that there are people who happily go along and they tend to shop for the whole weekend. That's what they do. That's the thing. Or run a bar or whatever.
Run a bar. You sell cookies. You just for the first year, we were just tourists. That's all we were, right? We literally walked around in the amusement park of Empire, right? Yeah. I'm not saying that should be for if everyone went and did that, it wouldn't be a great game. But I completely respect that people. Yeah, and you also can find your feet a bit more as well. Yeah. And if you go to enough bars and drink enough ale, then usually game does find you in
Stuff
one way
will
or
happen.
another.
Absolutely, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I just can't wait to get back there. Basically, roll on whenever it is it's going to be. I just want to get back.
I think it's going to be interesting to see where the game is then. The Winds of War have started being released now for the event.
Oh, really?
Hopefully, yeah. So there is some you can kind of keep up with the narratives. I haven't actually looked at them yet, and the nice people that do the Empire Audio, they do have a YouTube channel, and they read out the Winds of War, and that is a godsend for people like me. So
I love that.
And I haven't listened to it yet, so I don't know where I'm at with it. I think I'm kind of. I'd love to see a date for the event, and then I'll probably pile into it, or maybe I don't know. Yeah. But there's something about the keen, right? I don't want to disappoint myself by being too excited.
No. All of our sort of prep we wanted to do, we had loads of stuff. Like I say, so I learned bookbinding. The reason I learned bookbinding was I wanted to make, because I was going out to be an artisan, I wanted to get my head around how the different items cost, what they cost, and all that sort of stuff. So I scraped the data off the wiki, laid it out in InDesign, printed it, and turned it into a leather-bound book. So I've got a book with illustrations and things I put in, which are then bound in leather. So I carry it around with me. So I've got a reference for artisan type stuff.
That's awesome.
I wanted to make another one for ritual magic because I'm dabbling in that as well, because I think dabbling is always fun.
Ritual magic, really? So are you gonna get yourself a little coven?
Well, so I did. So we've got one guy, Martin, who's in our striding. He plays a character called Aman, who's like a crotchety old wizard. And I wanted to get into the magic. The reason I initially wanted to look at magic, it's a really stupid reason, but I love it. When we were running our messages at E3, we spent most of Saturday looking for the Archmage of Autumn. And I finally tracked him down as he was on his way into the Hall of Worlds.
Right.
And I could not follow him because I was not a mage.
Yep.
I was like, well, screw this then. If we're going to deliver messages, I'm going to be a mage so that I can get anywhere on camp.
That's completely fair. That is
Exactly.
actually very, very true, because it's almost like the secret little club for wizards,
Yeah,
isn't it?
precisely.
Where
And
not tonight, mate. You're not coming in.
Yeah, that's it. No, trainers, So I thought I will go and do that. And so I established like some story where basically having spent some time on the road with Aman, we'd been working on this, maybe had a bit of a gift for it, and so I did my first little taste of ritual magic at E4, which was really good fun. I ended up I'm like a knight mage, which he's autumn, so I was doing stuff solo. But it was really interesting. I did some stuff with visions. That was really cool. And I want to do sort of more of that going forward. It's just, I've got to figure out, do I want to find a coven? Do I want to go more solo? Which way do I want to go with it? I'm not quite sure yet.
Which whatever season or whatever flavour are you?
So night. So it's all kind of visions and...
Night?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, visions and riddles and mysteries and that sort of stuff.
All right. If we happen to bump into each other, I might be able to introduce you to a couple of very dark fellows. So,
fantastic!
Yeah,
brilliant. Love it.
But the yeah, I find the ritual stuff, like, I'm almost tempted. Okay, so the rituals I've had done have been within my banner, and they've always been this kind of thing where, and this isn't a criticism of the person casting it or the people casting it. It's always been the last thing on the weekend. Like, it's given not enough respect. It's like the kind of like, I'm just housekeeping, so I'm going to cast this spell on me that will mean that I get to do this thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to give it more priority or whatever. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
even if it
maybe.
means, I don't know. I need to explore it a bit more and maybe get some rituals done from different people and see what's out there. But
I think that there's
maybe
some really
show a bit
fun
more respect
stuff.
to my guys, really.
Yeah, maybe.
What's that say again?
I think there's quite a lot of fun stuff amongst the rituals, things that can happen. Like, one of the things that the reason I ended up going with night was, again, it's all kind of folding into the same idea. Was you can do things like you can create. Like, you can protect bags from being opened by anyone but yourself, that whole sort of thing.
What? That's cool.
Well, yeah, because
okay.
it means it ties into the whole messenger thing. We can provide a secure service. This is
that's
it all,
clever.
it all
Yeah,
ties
I like
together.
it.
But then looking deeper into it, the whole thing of like visions and like dreams and illusions. There's some really fun like RP stuff in there.
Yeah, that massively. It's okay. Going into the kind of like magic world, I love how it's like an extra flavor on what your personality might be, right? Like, you can game it. Like, the people have been trying to encourage me to go into autumn, but if I go into anything, I'm going into summer because it matches my character, right? It matches who I am, it matches what I do. Even if I can't, I'll have to go out and find probably another group. Actually, I don't know. Actually, strike that. There might be more summer people in my thing. But I don't know whether I'm even interested in doing ritual magic. Like, I need to watch more of it, I think. Maybe from an external point of view.
It was definitely interesting because what I ended up doing was I went away and spent a little bit of time up at God on the wiki, looking up some information, and I sort of planned out, almost like scripted, the ritual. Exactly. Full on, absolutely. Is there any doubt? And so I'm almost sort of seeing it as like my character's approaching it almost like a mathematical, like it's a scientific sort of thing.
So you're like pursuing it like it's but in the world of, what's interesting is, like, we talk about this when it comes to religion as well. Like, we're so kind of like 2020 programmed to be like, religion is it's hocus pocus, right? Like, but to view it as a science, right? To be like, no, I am learning magic because it's linked to the way, and the way is completely real. Like, of course it is, because I can do these things, right? Like, absolutely. It does manifest itself, and it's an interesting mechanic to have in it, where you can be a total religious zealot. In fact, there are many religious zealots at Empire.
Yeah. That's it. Who have
heretics.
Evidence for what they're doing. It's really interesting. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's kind of start wrapping up, I think, there, James.
Sure.
But it's been really fun talking to you. I just kind of it's fun hearing your experience coming into the game, and how you approached it. There's a couple of things. How did you feel? Is there any kind of insights that you maybe had from being a games designer coming into Empire when you were looking at the rule book? Like, how did you interact with that as a game set?
So, I mean, initially, I gave everything a really good read, as I always do for any game I play.
And then was that rules or was that lore? Or both?
It was both. So I read pretty much anything I could get my hands on, just so I wanted to have like a nice working knowledge of most stuff. The rules specifically I went through, and what I was really impressed with was the game design. It suits the style of play so well. Like, it's designed so that everything has, all the things that need justification are really well justified. You're not having to kind of hold loads of information in your head. Like, I've read about LARP systems where you're having to almost like do maths on the field, track hit points, different locations, all this sort of nonsense. Whereas actually everything is so clear cut. And it's even things like the national brief, like the orc brief, where they've written in like the wraps around the wrists and the neck as part of the character, but of course it's there for an OC reason as well. It's there to hide the mask and all that sort of thing. That to me is indicative of the whole approach that's been taken to the rules generally, which is they are written as a very living rule set that is there to make the game work smoothly. And I imagine
Massively.
you need that.
I'm a big fan of board games when the mechanics on a game fit the setting of a game.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So I've recently been playing this World War II game. What's it called? Undaunted.
Normally, I want to play it. The deck building one.
It's so good.
I want to get
it's
on it,
such a good game. And I like military history. As any grown boy should. But the mechanics, the way that they work on the field is like, I understand what's happening. I can visualize what's happening in this battlefield because of the mechanics, right?
Yeah.
LARP, on the other hand, has this extra dimension where you have to deal with people actually acting these things out and interacting and everything else that goes along with that, right? Like, talk about a feat, my God. And then to see it in action working so well is hugely impressive.
I would love to sit down and chat to Matt sometime and find out how his brain works, because it's fantastic. The whole sort of rules team is incredible.
It's an endless abyss of knowledge that you will fall
imagine.
into. I feel complete. I've talked to him twice now, and every time I speak to him, I'm just like, I wish someone smarter than me was talking to him that could actually ask him a lot better questions than I am, because I'm sure he has some fascinating stuff to talk about. Also, Andy Raff, I'll put in that as well, and Graham and Claire and all the rest of them. They're all very, very good. I'll stop kissing their ass because I'll end up sounding like a shill. They'll be like, oh yeah, the podcast was good until they completely sold out to Empire. Do you know what I mean? Like PD, those shills. I had one more question. I want to talk to you about like. So I recently did this dumb video where I spoke to random people on the internet, and one thing I found was the kind of people, the people don't really know about LARP, right? Yeah. Like, I was aware of LARP in the peripheries because I'm a nerd, right? Like, I get it because it's out there, right? Whereas there's this huge mainstream of society that have no idea it even exists, and I find that interesting. I think board games and tabletop could be a wonderful route in to kind of tap into people. I wonder whether there's that crossover will actually increase over the time.
I wonder. I think like a lot of the nerdier hobbies are kind of coming out into the open a lot more now. I mean, board games are basically a very standard thing for people to do these days. And I think. What's something recently where someone went back in time or something, and the nerdy kids were now cool, and the cool kids were now like the outcast people. And I feel that's kind of like how cultures kind of changed. Absolutely.
Like, it's more tech related now, and making a YouTube channel is a cool thing, and being tech savvy. I
mean, I was a massive early adopter on this sort of stuff. So I had a live journal back in the day, and I was one of the first people I knew on Facebook. And, and so for me, it feels so weird. It's like, this stuff is like what the cool kids do now. When I was there, I was the weird nerdy kid, and I still am the weird nerdy kid. But now the stuff I do is no longer weird and nerdy. Well,
like we were talking about earlier with Games Workshop, that has definitely hit this very mainstream. Like, it's undeniable now. Like, I walked into where was I? I was somewhere. Where was I? Cardiff. I was in Cardiff, and I was going to a cider festival, and we stopped into a little shop, like a corner shop.
Yeah.
And they had a rack, like one of those special racks for Games Workshop stuff.
Yeah.
I was stunned. I was like, you have limited space in this shop, and you have chosen to put Games Workshop merchandise as a kind of, hey, before you leave, why don't you pick up 6 Space Marines on the way out? I'm like, What this
It's
is
crazy, isn't
wacky.
it?
Like, when did this happen? I wonder how long it will be before. And I am one of those people. I am a true LARP believer. I believe that it's much more accessible than people think it is.
Absolutely. It's like, we've had to kind of explain it to our families, as we've gone, can you look after our daughter for the weekend? We're going to this thing, and here's what it is. And like Sophie's mum is, she is a dressmaker. She's done all sorts of like period costumes and things. So she's been helping out with costuming. And like she keeps saying, oh, actually, if you go to any of the fairs and that, can I come along with you? And I'll pick up some fabrics and that sort of thing.
Right.
And it's interesting. It's like there is something for everyone there. It's like anything. Like with board games, I think there's a board game for everyone, and I think there's something about LARP that anyone can enjoy.
I think my family are slowly starting to understand that it's something I do. They'll never understand it, but the podcast is a weird thing because I don't think they knew much about it.
Yeah.
And then when we said like, oh, we got nominated for this LARP award, I think my mum was. I think that's what they call pride. I think that's what that is. I can't. I wish I had a camera to record it at the time, but I think that's what that was. So it's an interesting hobby, and I think, let's put it this way: some people aren't going to get it. Right? Like, some people will never get that tabletop gaming, board gaming, LARP, RP, cosplay, airsoft.
Yep.
The list goes on, right? They'll never fucking get it, right?
Yeah.
We should don't listen to the detractors. Speak to those people in the middle that are just willing to find a new experience. And I'm sure if they give it a chance, they'll love it,
Absolutely. It's I just to me it's brought so much to my life. Not wanting to get too serious about it, but it's really, I feel like it's had a really positive effect on me, and I just want to spread that around. It's having the chance to just go in and just be a character for a weekend and just kind of lose yourself in this amazing world is incredible, and I love it. I
totally agree. When I won't go, like you said, I won't go into it too much, but at that time in my life and through subsequent things in my life, right? Like life is a roller coaster,
you just got to
however
ride
you
it.
want to do it, right? And all night long. But LARP has really helped me in certain times, and weirdly, a lot more than I thought it did. So it's something I look back on and go, wow, I was actually manifesting my OC feelings in my OC character, and I only could recognize that afterwards and realize that I was actually processing stuff. Not that I recommend using LARP for therapy, right? Let's not start that. But for me personally, it was interesting to watch that happen,
Absolutely. I actually had a really weird experience. Right? I think it was at E4, and it was on like the Friday night or the Saturday night, and the rest of our lot had gone to bed, and I was still fired up. So I went for a walk around the camp by myself. I ended up standing in Varushka, and there was I forget the names. There's a bunch of like wandering minstrels. They've got a didgeridoo and a couple of guitars. It's like Dave and something, and they were there. They were doing some piece, and there's a little crowd standing around sharing drinks, and it was such an awesome moment in character. And then someone recognised me from like my job, and went, "You all right, James?"
Interesting.
And I was like, and it was such a weird experience. It pulled me right out of the moment because like. He asked,
James, are you like proper famous?
No.
Do people recognise you?
I'm like I don't know, within certain niches. Like my face has been on a lot of things. Like my face has been in White Dwarf magazine. And that, so it's like
I'm so sorry if you're listening to this and you're like a really big fan of James's.
No, there aren't any of those.
Here and okay, good, because I always worry about that. I had the same thing when I was talking to PD. That I'm like, someone's listening to this, going, "Man, I wish this person was asking better questions." Right?
No, not at all. But I think it's like because like a lot of my job, like when I was community manager at Mantic, I did a load of videos and all that, so my face was out there a lot. People sort of recognise me at the occasional like nerdy games convention. Someone would go, "Hey James, how you doing?" And sure enough, because the Venn diagram is basically a circle, I had someone say to me, "You all right, James?" At this, and I was like, "Who is this James of which you speak?" It just pulled me out, and it really put me out of sorts. Like the next half hour, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm me, aren't I?"
It can be quite. It depends on what you're doing at the time. Right? It can break character. We've been. Like, not that we're big, right, at all. But we've had really good interactions. We've only ever had really positive interactions with anyone that's listened to the podcast. Everyone's quite nice about it. But yeah, it must be weird to kind of be recognised like that, right? It's definitely something that's, when it happens to us, which isn't very often, it's really nice and still weird. So
I suppose you've got the benefit of radio face, haven't you? Like you are mainly a voice. I suppose that's the
and we're so
wonder.
small that we have a small community of listeners that listen to it, and I speak to them regularly. It's not like there's a barrier between. Do you know what I mean?
Course,
like,
absolutely.
I'm sure if you get to a certain point where you have thousands and thousands of listeners, you can't, you shouldn't talk to every single person that messages you for your own,
absolutely
mental health, probably.
Yeah.
But for us, it's we're in a really nice position with it, Anyway, I'm rambling, so we should probably call this to an end. There,
let's
James.
do it.
There's always a point where I start rambling, and we should just end the podcast. But James, thank you so much for coming and doing this. It's been
Thank you for
absolutely
having
brilliant
me.
talking to
I've
you.
thoroughly enjoyed it.
I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person and hopefully maybe doing some RPing with you at some point if we can come up with a smart way of doing it. Maybe
we'll
I need a message sending.
Yeah, maybe you do.
In fact, I might. You never know. I might need a message. I could be an important person.
Who can say?
People don't know that. People don't know I don't know anything and I'm completely useless.
Hey, anyone can afford 5 rings, right? 5 rings for a letter. What's that? 5 rings.
5 rings. It'll get to you when it gets to you. Shut up. So yeah. Yeah, thanks a lot for listening, everyone. I hope everyone's staying safe and doing okay. And I want to say a big thank you to our patrons who are still supporting us. We are, obviously, we're trying to release content and we're trying to keep you guys entertained and keep ourselves sane. So we're doing our best. I hope that you're well. And thank you very much. Goodbye.
Right then. So who are you?
Well, I'm the narrator. This is my companion, the listener. They don't mean to be rude, and they don't talk much. And this is our ferryman, Jasper. Yarp!
The narrator? The listener? Jasper? Are you on your way to a silly names contest?
Please ignore him.
He has a crude sense of humour.
Sense of humour? I had that beaten out of me in Brockelliand 10 years before you were born, you cheeky git.
I'm Vanya, and this is my partner Varian.
It's a pleasure.
And this gruff Navari chap is Bryn Blossomflower.
Evening.
You're lucky you bumped into us before something else. There is a terrible creature out there that we've been tracking.
Actually, we did have a little run-in with the beast.
And you've still got all your arms and legs? Bullshit.
Which way did it go?
It set off in that direction, but it was going at quite the pace.
It's probably long gone by now.
We should get back to 2 staff.
Fine. I'm in need of a warm ale and a hot bath.
Delightful!